As a startup founder, you've got to earn attention, and you've got to earn that investor's attention and keep it going to get that investment.
How do you circumvent that? That is a pretty shitty feeling.
It is. And I've been there. I've totally been there. And I've been underestimated, and I've been asked who built my financial model when I have an MBA from NYU Stern in finance and accounting. And I've been there. If you have a meeting at 9, at 10, 11, at 12, and you have 5 meetings a day for 2 weeks, you're going to be able to show up in a different way to those meetings than if you have one meeting a month. And believe me, I've done both, right? And the one meeting a month, I was like, oh, please, may I have your money? It's like, oh, what can I do to get your money? When I say there are investors out there that have told me in our interviews that if they send an email to someone at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning, they expect a response within an hour. And if they don't get a response within an hour, they're not going to invest.
I think both those parties are miserable, by the way. The one writing the email and the one replying to the email. Sorry. Hey everyone, this is The Messy Growth. So today's guest is someone who understands startup fundraising from both sides of the table. As a founder who's raised capital herself, and as someone who now helps founders close rounds faster and smarter. I've got Helena Fogarty with me today. Helena is a fundraising expert, a startup advisor, and the co-founder of Backable, where she helps overlooked founders navigate the brutal reality of raising capital and actually getting funded. She's also the host of Inside Startup Funding, where she sits down with founders who recently closed rounds and gets into the real juicy conversations behind the headlines. The investor meetings, the mistakes, the pressures, the pivots, and what it actually took to get money wired into the bank account. But here's what makes Helena especially interesting to me is that she's not coming at it from a theory lens. She's been a founder multiple times, both bootstrapped and venture-backed, built consumer brands, worked in luxury strategy roles at companies like Chanel, and spend years helping founders sharpen their story, position themselves properly, and of course, stop approaching fundraising like they're asking for permission. But honestly, though, in a market where raising capital has become noisier than ever before, harder than ever before, and way more competitor, that perspective really matters. So today we're going to talk about what founders consistently get wrong when fundraising, what investors actually pay attention to, how to stand out without sounding like everybody else, and what it really takes to close a round in today's market. Helena, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
Absolutely.
And it's fun to have you run this. Normally I'm the one who's kicking it off on my podcast. So this is cool being on the other side.
It's weird, right? I've been invited to a couple of podcasts and I'm like, I know what it looks like behind the lens. So it's interesting to have that kind of power. But I'm really glad you made it here. You come highly recommended. I really appreciate your time. So I want to dig right into the juicy stuff. Fundraising has been such an enigma. A lot of people who go out there that are fundraising don't know what to do, what questions to ask, how to present themselves, how to make the story. Is story at all important? Is it the company? Is it the product? Even the greatest of them all, I mean, they struggle with it quite a lot. So I just want to focus a little bit on, if you stripped away all of the content around fundraising today, what's the one truth founders don't want to hear about it, but it actually works?
Yeah. So you covered a few things in there that had my brain start working. And if you talk to investors, every investor has their own point of view, right? On whether story is important, traction is important, team's important. Of course, all those things are important. And I think when I look at it, you've got to, as a startup founder, you've got to earn attention. And you've got to earn that investor's attention and keep it going to get that investment. And so different ways of earning that attention are, some of the things we've heard before, like network and connections, right? It's like who you know. And that kind of sucks for a lot of us because we didn't grow up, in the Valley, or we didn't go to Yale or Stanford. So connections are important because it's someone vouching for you. And it's basically someone saying, you've got to speak to this person, right? So that's one way that you can earn interest. Another way to earn interest is through traction, right? Showing that this is a real business, showing that people really want what you're creating, that it's a pain pill, not a vitamin. And then another way to earn interest is really history, right? Who you are, your background, your education, where you've worked, and what you've created in the past. Yeah. So, for instance, I'm working with a second-time founder who's had a $90 million exit, right? And a lot of times she and her team don't want to mention that. And I'm like, no, you lead with that, because if anyone hears that, they're taking the meeting. Yeah. And that's a female founder. She didn't grow up in the US. but she did help found another company that got sold.
Yeah. I was
Right?
talking to somebody on this podcast, sorry, and they said that interestingly enough, investors will invest in you if you already had previous exits, and that too if they're great. But
Yeah.
interestingly enough, if you had multiple failures, the chances of getting funded go a lot lower. Why is that? Shouldn't that be inverse? Because if
I
you have
don't know if
failed, you
that's,
probably carry a lot more experience with you.
well, I haven't heard that,
Mm,
but I think there's a lot of like context around that,
sure.
right? Like maybe if you're sorry, I'm gonna go there. Maybe if you're a white guy from the US who went to Stanford and you failed a few times, yeah, you're gonna get that $20 million anyway.
Why does that
But
matter so much?
other people might not. Connections. You're
Mm,
well resourced. So, when we say connection, you can say, oh, that person grew up in the lap of luxury. They surrounded themselves with the right people. It was just by luck. But the truth of the matter is that if you are connected to other people in this world, and that can happen by just moving to a hub and connecting with other entrepreneurs, right? That can actually be recreated by people who don't come from certain areas and didn't go to the right schools. I've seen it. But it matters because it's going to be easier for you to know who's going to be the head of partnerships, different places. It's going to be easier for you to build a team. It's going to be easier for you to get advice from experts who have done this before. Like everything's just easier because it's a call or two away. So that's why it matters, even more so than you might have a nicer bank account and can fund some of this yourself. Or you might be able to call up your buddies and be like, hey, Brian, like, come in for 100,000, right? Like, of course, those are the things we don't like to talk about because that sucks because I couldn't do
yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
But it's also about being able to call someone who's done this and said, hey, you raised last month, connect me with some people. And so, when we talk about that, like connections, you can build those and you can build those from anywhere. So it's not easy. You've gotta create trust and create real relationships with people to get their attention. But you can do that, of course, by going to events. I hate events, so I had to find a different way to do it.
Really?
Yeah, hate events. So, I started doing this work like after I've raised myself and run a VC-backed company. I started doing this work 5 years ago because I was asked to by founders who knew me. And I started talking about it on LinkedIn, right? I started somewhat building in public, talking about it.
Sure.
And then because I was talking about it publicly, I got a podcast. Someone came to me and said, do you want a podcast? We'll do all the production. And then I got to develop my own podcast, which is allowing me to network with people one-on-one in real life. And so even though I'm an introvert and going to an event knocks me out for like a week and I hate every minute of it, I found another way to create those connections.
Yeah. You're circumventing that essentially. But I guess for
Yeah.
folks that don't have that ability or capacity or the time or the energy or the passion to start a podcast or essentially have a venture where they
Yeah.
can connect to people on a day to day, what events work? I'm just curious because I see this as event season right now.
Yeah.
And I just saw an event here and I think it was in Croatia and the tickets are like 700-800 euros. And I'm like, that better be worth it. That is a lot of money
That
to
really
go.
depends, right?
Yeah.
Like again, I'm not the kind of person who loves going to conferences. But if I need to, I will, but probably not a high price conference like that unless I've set up a bunch of meetings around
Sure.
that conference. So you've got to figure out what's going to work for you. And it's not about figuring out all the steps. It's about kind of mapping who you want to be connected with and then taking the next step. Because if we say, how am I going to be connected to this huge founder?
Yeah.
You might just stall out. But if you think, what's one step I can do that's going to make it closer?
Mm.
You can do that. There's also, like I was talking to Charlie O'Donnell, who is a former VC yesterday. He has a book out called Founder and Friendly, which is amazing. And he said that, like, depending on your background, you might be able to find things that you can connect with other people about. So, for instance, he went to a school called Fordham in New York, and he reached out to one of the top VCs in the Valley, like 20 years ago, who happened to have gone to Fordham. And the guy took a meeting just because that was like a connection there. They didn't know
Yeah.
each other. He was like, was the meeting really worth it? I don't know. But, it was, and not every meeting's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
But, also you can do these things on social media, whatever social media you like can also create small bits of a relationship. So Kirby Winfield, who's an investor out of Seattle, was on X talking about how, he knows he's of a certain age because he's got this wonderful sneaker collection that he's amassed, but he can't wear any of them because he needs orthopedic shoes. And, I responded and said, yeah, I get it. I've got Louboutins, I've got Chanel, I've got like a great shoe collection because that's what I worked in. But mostly I'm in my Birkenstocks for the same reason, right? Like, so, and he was like, ah, ha, ha. And so, I'm not saying that we're super connected, but you build on things like that take you from a non-entity into, I've somehow had some connection with this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you continue to build on that.
Real.
And again, like, unless you're a real machine at networking and kind of Machiavellian about it, you can lean into those people that you actually like and connect with. You don't have to talk to someone who you think's kind of a arrogant person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not necessarily. There are enough people out there that can get you where you want to go.
I'm curious, you mentioned arrogance. Is arrogance something that is a trait that is off-putting for investors? Because there are people that surely can be real pricks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As soon as you meet them, you're like, God damn. Like,
Yeah, but some
I
people
can't
love that.
stand that. Really?
Some people love
People
that.
like that?
Yeah, some investors think that's the best thing
Okay.
ever
Okay.
because
Being
that
an
person's
asshole is good?
unstoppable.
Got it.
It's for some investors, they will eat that up. I don't suggest that anyone puts on a mask that they don't feel comfortable with.
Sure.
But there are people in the world, and I mean, a lot of them are male, but who just grew up with a level of confidence,
Yeah.
right? I actually have outsized confidence for my skill level. It's just something that's the way I grew up. So if you're that kind of person, you may show up with a certain level of confidence, let's say. Not arrogance, but confidence, and people like that. That allows you to walk into the room. That allows you not to ask for permission for anything that you're doing. Right? You just do it because you feel like, of course you should be in that room. Why wouldn't you be in that room? Right? Arrogance is something different. Arrogance and kind of brusque behavior and maybe some, I don't know what the right term for it, but even, leaning towards like on the spectrum, some investors like that. It's just going to be, there's all kinds of signals that different people like.
Yeah. I guess different strokes for different folks, right? I mean,
Yeah, but I will tell you that when I'm working with any founder, a lot of times when they want to follow up with an investor that they've met with, it's very helpful to them to talk to me and just say, how should I respond? And I'm like, these 2 sentences, period, done, send it. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, that was a great meeting, wonderful, great to see you, I hope we see each other again. Like, you don't have to do all that. You can just respond to the question and send it. And some investors like that better than if you're nice. If you're a little brusque.
Isn't that playing to put on a mask though? Like not being your own self? I kind of like.
I see it as more being direct and efficient. And so I don't and say that, like, what I'm talking about is if you were meeting with someone, you're like, oh, I'm meeting with this really important person. How am I going to respond? And you start writing paragraphs because you're trying to explain anything. Nobody wants to read that.
Yeah, they don't. I get it.
And I'm not being like, oh yeah, like don't let the door hit you on your way out. Like, don't be rude necessarily unless that's who you are. But it's more about just direct efficiency and not acting like you are a lower social caste than the investor you met with.
A lot of people feel that way though. Like,
Yeah,
like you talk about going into a room because you feel like that person or persons hold the key to the kingdom, so to speak, because they got there. They have been there. They have the power over you for a lack of a better way to put it. How do you circumvent that? That is a pretty shitty feeling.
So it is, and I've been there. I've totally been there.
I get it.
I've been underestimated, and I've been asked to build my financial model when I have an MBA from NYU Stern in finance and accounting, and like I've been there, right? I was
Yeah.
like, well, sir, I did. Is it bottom up or top down? Both. But yeah, no, it's the way that I suggest people circumvent that is by running a tight process. So you do as much work up front as you can,
Mm,
and then you're doing a lot of preparation work on your network to try to get the attention, right? To get those meetings. And then you try to set up your meetings, all your first meetings in 2 weeks
mm,
and getting enough of those. If you don't get enough, you don't move forward. Like you don't actually start the process until you get enough
yeah.
of those meetings booked. If you have a meeting at 9, at 10, 11, at 12, and you have like 5 meetings a day for 2 weeks, you're going to be able to show up in a different way to those meetings than if you have one meeting a month. And believe me, I've done both, right? And the one meeting a month, I was like, oh, please, please, may I have your money? It's like, oh, what can I do to get your money? Like, please, like, become an investor. I'd really love you on my cap table, all those things, right? Um, when you have all these meetings, instead you're like, hey, like, Steve, it was great to meet you. I'm not sure where you sit on this. Are you interested or you're not interested? I've got another meeting in 10 minutes, so I've got to go. And that's authentic. So like versus mind games versus putting on a mask versus affirmations in the mirror, I prefer to create the environment where my founders can walk in and know that they've got a bunch of other investors who are interested. And so if Steve is kind of a jerk, you can be like, hey, like, it doesn't seem like this is the right fit. I'm going to go. And your job as the founder, again, like this goes back to
Yeah.
feeling like you deserve to be in the room and you're evaluating people the same way as they are evaluating you. Your job at the end of every meeting is to say, what do you think? And to push them towards a yes or a no, and really push them towards a no unless they're like 100% yes. So I've always said, like, you end a meeting with, what do you think? And you let them talk. And if it's unclear, you say, so I'm having my next meetings in 2 weeks. Shall we get you on the schedule? What do you need to see before then? If I answer those questions correctly, are you in? Like really qualifying them, pushing them to say, to get more committed. And when I was talking to Charlie O'Donnell on Monday, and he's got this great book, Founder Unfriendly, that I'm plugging now, even though it's on my book. He says, he even goes further and says, you should be asking these people. So you're going to have an investment meeting on Monday or Tuesday of next week, right? Yeah, of course. We all have that. Are you going to advocate for me? Are you going to tell them that you should be investing in this company? Or are you just going to run down my list of my company along with a list of a bunch of others? And you get a feel. And if they're just like, it's just going to be one on a list, like just say, okay, well, let's touch base next year. Cause like, I don't think you're really interested. I don't think you're serious. And so I'm going to move on with my other investors. But the only way you can show up and say that is if you have other options.
Yeah. Or you could have a great poker face or poker attitude.
Yeah.
And just go
Yeah.
around
I show everything in my face. So yeah,
it.
I'm not very good at that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interesting. I've been in the boardrooms or actually I've been through the acquisition process and I've seen investors, private equity firms grill you from inside out because they know all the answers. They just want to see you how you would answer them. And it's kind of like they make you dance, so to speak. But I'm curious, a lot of those people are not operators. They've never been operators. They've never founded companies. Vast majority of them never actually worked in sales, in go-to-market,
Yep.
in what have you. I'm
100%.
curious, do non-operators make great investors, or do former operators, make great investors? Or you kind of feel like that it's anybody who has a good eye for talent?
Yeah, I think it's probably, in terms of results, it's probably, I don't know the breakdown of that, but we could probably find great examples of both. However, I think what investors who have been operators in the past can bring to the table is a lot of coaching. It can bring to the table a lot of empathy and foresight for their founders. So yeah, it's like the old story, like, hey, if I want to sit down and get told what to do by a 26-year-old who's never worked in a real company, like, let's go pitch VCs. And I'll get disrespected because they'll turn their camera off and I'll be pitching 10 people, but nobody will have their camera on. And then they'll tell me what I should do with my company when they have no clue. Yeah, of course that does happen.
Yeah.
And Also, most of these investors are seeing a lot of companies and have some insight into what would make your company an outlier, in their opinion, right? In order to get invested. And I think that's worthwhile. But I talked to a founder turned investor a week ago, and he's already done an IPO in his last company, and then he became an angel investor. Now he became a VC, and like what I see there is a great respect for founders and a lot of empathy. So he runs his fund a little bit differently. He doesn't. He's not as strict on the power law. He doesn't stop talking to his companies if they're not going to be returning the fund 100x.
What is power law? Sorry, I'm not privy to that term.
So I'm probably going to mangle it. So people should rather Google this or look it up on Claude. But the power law is basically the model that many VC funds are based on, especially early stage, that require, out of a fund that makes 100 investments, they're expecting that 90 of those investments will not be winners.
Oh,
and
the vast majority.
Yeah, the vast majority are not going to be winners. There's going to be a handful that return, 2 to 3x. But those are also, even though they're returning money to the fund, they're not doing well enough. And then they're going to have a few that really, do a 50 or 100 time return. And that's how they make their money. So as a VC, if you have that kind of portfolio construction, and not everybody does, but many do, it's really in their best interest to stop, I guess, investing resources beyond the money that they've already invested. Like stop spending a lot of time with the companies that they don't think are going to return the fund. And even potentially pressure some of those companies that are not going to be able to return the fund to shut down earlier and return capital to the fund.
No. That's interesting.
But like as a founder, that's not great.
Yeah.
Right? As a VC, as a business model, it makes sense, but it's not a wonderful experience to be a founder who is not the winner there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. It's something I used to love this question back when I used to ask new hires or folks that I was trying to hire. I asked some other sales pros now, and the question is, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about fundraising today, just based on how it operates, how it is, whatever it is today, if you could change something, what would that be?
I was thinking about this and I had a bigger answer. I guess a bigger answer in terms of capital sources available, and that's something that we're working on. But if I really wanted to change something today, I'd love to make it a meritocracy. I'd love to remove the bias that, but that's a huge, that's all built into our society. That's built into the patriarchy. That's built into all kinds of stuff, humans, human behavior. So I don't know how we're going to do that, but it would be really nice if we could modify the quote unquote system so that more diverse founders could get funded. And I look at diversity in a way that it's like location, age, color, gender, nationality, anything that diverts from the prototypical founder, 19-year-old founder, Stanford dropout.
God,
so I would love that would change.
The amount of movies I've seen with these Stanford dropouts, I don't know what is in the water in the Stanford well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a bunch of really smart people that that are maybe have a tendency to be incredibly focused on things, like almost unhealthily, but more so, it's also the network that's been built around. Yeah. So if you're in Stanford and you have an idea, there's a whole culture around talking to your professors about that, and maybe getting funding from your professors, and then they talk to other people and it starts. Yeah. Right? Not to the same extent, but at Harvard, I interviewed this company called Holly, which is an amazing company, a great company, started by 2 Harvard Business School graduates. But yeah, they talk to their professors. They got angels on board, and then those angels knew people in VCs, and they raised their first round really quickly.
Yeah.
And they're smart enough to get into Harvard. They're incredible founders. They're actually like really, really good founders. But there are certain places where you can get yourself, and I don't have a bunch of examples on hand outside of those two, but where there's an ecosystem that's ready to support you with funding.
Interesting.
So I guess another one would be like YC. Like YC, really hard to get into, incredibly hard to get into. But if you get in, a lot easier to raise money afterwards.
Got the brand stamp, right? Like you guys must
Brand
be
stamp
doing
and
something
connections.
right.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I'm actually curious because then the bootstrapping, right? Why do most people consider bootstrapping? Isn't it fun? Isn't it better? You control, you retain
Isn't
ownership.
it fun?
I've okay, I would take, and maybe this is me being an idiot because I've never founded a company. I've worked with companies that are that have been bootstrapped, or companies who are VC funded, and I can tell you the pressure is intense. Like you got a 3x your revenue.
Yeah.
How? Like
over and over.
Like
Yes.
how? Like unless you're 11 labs and you're at the peak, everything dies. It's an eventuality that you're never gonna sustain that pace. It's just not possible. That's not humanly possible. What about the cases where you have these investors that are pushing it through? It seems just not helpful for you for long term for the most part. That's why I'm asking about the bootstrap. Why not just go through that route?
Yeah, no, I think there's a whole movement. Like clearly the company that I have, we're bootstrapping. We're not looking for VC funding because it's also a service company, so it's not a good fit for VC backing.
Sure, yeah.
But if you're going to go for VC backing, you're giving up, you're prioritizing this company.
Yeah.
This thing that's not a living being. You're prioritizing that over everything, over your relationships. Yeah, I'm going to say over your health, over your financial health, like over, it's not healthy. And you need to know that if you're taking that money for the next 10 years, that's going to be your priority.
No, thank you.
I've seen some people thrive in that, right? Like I talk to a lot of founders, and then there's a lot of other ways to go about it. Like bootstrapping, sure, bootstrapping to a certain point, or seed strapping, which is where you get one round of funding and then get profitable. Also good. I've seen people grow companies and then take private equity money in, which also comes with some changes, some challenges there. But I've seen people do that, and it's more sustainable.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of different models that you can follow, and it's a really important question when people are putting together their company.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't want to run a VC-backed company.
No.
That
sounds horrible, by the way. Like the amount of crap that you have to jump through. You're just a glorified manager at that point, right? Like I get it, you have some equity in there, but like if something goes wrong, your fault. Like you're always on the front line, and it just seems. I guess like
the benefits are right. The benefits are you have resources, you can grow to be as big as you can possibly grow.
Yeah,
and it's exciting. Right. The negatives are, I think it can be exciting. The negatives are the toll that it can take.
Well, if you're willing to do it, and this is what drives you, like you said, then that's just a perfect fit for you for the most part, right? I've been wanting to ask you this question, and it's interesting because I've seen a video on YouTube where the person, and I've seen that person's post on LinkedIn where they say that the best founders, the VCs should be looking at, are ones that have had a pretty messed up childhood, because they make great founders. Like if they don't have dads, or they don't have their moms, or God forbid, like something bad happened to them.
Yeah,
and I guess there's a certain level of arrogance in that statement, and I think this is one of those points is when you start to elevate yourself in the public sphere, and people start to look at you, you start to drink a lot of your Kool-Aid, because the reality checks get less and less over time because you're insulated from all of the noise, or the shellacking that you would get if you were in real life and you said bullshit like that. Sorry, not in this particular case. Is there truth in that? Is that a criteria? Because it's just it
I don't
seems
think it's a
such
criteria. I don't think it's
okay.
criteria, but I think that a lot of people who get really focused on a problem and are willing to make the trade-offs that people are willing to make maybe have certain characteristic traits, right? Like they may have something to prove. They may be someone who gets obsessed with ideas, right? Like
Mm.
so I don't know what the Venn diagram with that is and having a bad childhood, but I had a great childhood and I got obsessed
How
with
dare
things and
you?
I yeah. But I also, what I've seen? I've seen like the best founders are the youngest child in family, right? Like, because they have
Mm.
something to prove. So, it's like, I think it's more about having something to prove and having the grit and resilience to move things forward.
Yeah. And because it's going to require that, whether you go
Yeah.
VC route or not. I mean, if you don't have the greater resilience, don't
Yeah.
go in this game. You're not going to succeed 100%. This is something
Yeah.
that
And
will
the risk
require you to.
tolerance, right? Like the risk tolerance is incredible.
Yeah. 100%. Especially if your money's in there, right?
Yeah.
Forget reputation for just a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take VC money, what's the worst that's gonna have? VC already, you said 90% of their things, they know they're gonna go down to the shitter. But the 1% that will, it's gonna make up for all the losses and everything. So
Yeah, but I mean, most founders I know do have their own money in the company in some extent, and certainly have,
yeah,
you know, a lot of life in their company. Like
yeah.
they've risked a lot of stuff, they've missed events for their company.
I learned that the hard way, not to miss events. Interestingly
Yeah.
enough, because if you're a passionate founder, that's number two. But you can have passionate employees; they get screwed
Hmm.
both ways because their equity is small. But they have to be like that for the company to go ahead and get into this six,
Yeah.
7 figures or what have you, and so on and so forth. Um, and I mean, a lot of folks, they probably will look at this and prepare for their funding rounds or potentially would want to go ahead and go in front of a VC. Is there, if someone who's watching and is about to raise their first round, is there a misconception they have walking into it or something you
Oh
would like
yeah.
to advise them?
It's going to be so much more work than you think it's going to be.
Okay, so it's not one and done.
No, 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 no.
Okay.
I think any founder I've worked with, myself, anyone I've talked to, like it's usually so much more work and preparation and during the fundraising period of time than you expect. And for most people, it takes a lot longer than you think it's going to be. Those stories you hear about people closing their round in 2 weeks are very rare, and often the timeline has been adjusted, if you know what I
Adjusted?
mean. Yeah. Like, let's restart the clock. Oh, it only took 2 weeks now. No, it's yeah,
Oh, I've heard
there's
that.
some
We went from 0 to 100 million in like 11 months.
yeah.
Of course you did, dude.
And this is part of the myth of startups. Like there are literally times when we've worked with founders and said, "Hey, just like restart the clock. You've pivoted. Let's like don't say you've been working on this for 3 years. You've been working on this for 3 months now because you just restarted the clock." But people do that with fundraising as well. There are some people out there that can raise in 2 weeks with an idea on the back of a napkin, without a pitch deck and all those things. But usually there's a reason. And usually that reason is because of the background that they have and the work that they've done before. So there's a founder who I interviewed called Oren Michaels, and he has a company called Barn Door AI. And he was able to raise 13.5 million, I think, on, basically the back of a
Oh my
napkin. So
God.
he didn't have a pitch deck and he did it very quickly. But
Mm.
in the past, he's had an exit, right? He did something very similar in the past and he had some of the same team members and he's applying that same sort of idea to the AI world. And he knew he needed at least 10 million. So he called up his buddies, the people that he's known for 20 years, not like people he went to school with, people that, he knew through the work he had done. And he was able to get that kind of round done.
10 million, huh? Oh, well, not a big deal at all.
Yeah, 13.5. He's like, I'm not
Oh,
I'm
oh,
not doing it.
oh.
I can't do it for 5. I got to do it for 10.
No.
Oversubscribed at 13.5.
And I'm curious, you help founders close rounds. Is there a moment
Mhm.
where you can tell this one is going to close versus this is going to drag on for months?
Well, you never know it's going to close until it closes.
Sign on the
And I will
dotted
say
line.
that because you just never know. There's a lot of certainty, right? But
Yeah.
even a company who I worked with who closed their Series A in September of last year, I think they closed it on like the second Friday of September. And you think Series A, they've got enterprise clients, they've got really big clients, big banks, whatnot.
Yeah.
They're not going to run out of money. But the due diligence took so long, the wire took so long, like all of the approvals from their prior investors were dragging things on. And if they hadn't gotten the wire on that Friday before 5, their bank account would have dipped below 0 because they had to do payday that day. And if it dipped below 0, then they'd have to get all the board resolutions again, and it would have dragged on for another 2 or 3 weeks. So, like,
Fun.
yeah, you think this is like, we thought, and that was September, right? We thought this was like going to be done in July,
Yeah.
and it kept going. I have a client who had 2 investors recently for much, like a little tiny pre-round before raising a bigger round. And one of the investors signed the safe and said he wired it and then walked away from the deal. So I always say the money's not in the bank until it's in the bank. However, there are indicators when there's momentum. There's indicators when you're able to get multiple investors to the table. There's, indicators when you have multiple term sheets and you can use those to, negotiate a stronger position. And so what we focus on is all those things, like generating the momentum, generating the interest, getting people to the table, preparing our founders to answer those questions and to have companies that sound, that are VC backable. And then, you do all that to generate the interest and get it closed faster.
Interesting. I'm going to use that when I go ahead and finally raise funding for my next startup.
No, for real. Call me up and I can tell you some tips, but that I'm sharing here, but in more detail.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had founders go to a meeting and be told, we have a handshake deal. I'm going to send you a term sheet on Tuesday. And then they get ghosted.
Ooh. Imagine the pain and the level of emotions you must go
Oh,
through.
I know, because it's my client. Yeah. I've had a client go out to San Francisco for like what seemed to be the ultimate last meeting. And we had people on the inside saying it was a go and it was all going to happen. And then they didn't hear from the firm until, later that next week. And it was just a no. We're not going to move forward.
Mm.
So nothing is certain until, the wire's in the bank.
Fair enough. I'm going to ask you an off topic, away from funding question, but it's revolving around founders. My happy place is my little piece of land that I own. So if you go after work ends, typically like around 5 or 6, sun's starting to set. You can see it over the woods, the sun is setting. There's a certain level of peace and quiet, and crickets are chirping, and fish are trying to jump out because they're active at that time because the heat's cooling down. It's a good place. You feel like you're in a good this is a good place to be. That is your safe place for the most part. I kind of look at it from the founder's lens that a lot of the founders, they have these golden handcuffs. They've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions in some cases. But they're unhappy. They're stuck. They are constantly pushing forward. Like you said, you have to make that your own life. Do you know of any founders that are not in that cycle? That their company is similar to the happy place that I have of my own, where they go in, they have boundaries. They take 5-6 weeks off a year. They're
Oh, no,
operating.
I live in the U.S.
Sorry. Global. They spend
we get
time
in
with their
trouble if we
children.
take a day off, right? Like, we don't
How
answer
dare you?
emails
God damn, you gotta do
at
an
1 a.m.
accident,
on
get
a
to work.
Saturday. Come on.
For
Do
Christ's
I know
sakes.
any founders who've raised who are in that? No, not while they're growing their company.
Fair enough. So it's just a grind.
I know, listen, I'm very lucky that I have an older brother who's 10 years older than me. And he is not a founder, but he is running a fast growing company, but not a VC backed company,
Okay.
a PE backed company. And he is a great model for me in terms of the boundary he's been able to put in his life. In terms of, yes, he does take calls at weird times and he is available, but he also is there for family events and he's very present and he enjoys his life. And so that's like, I look at that as a, gosh, would be a wonderful, you know, wonderful person to emulate. But VC backed founders, no, I don't see that
That's not
typically.
going to happen, right? Get to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of my founders lives on a lake and he has a pretty nice situation, but he also works very hard.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I think like there's two things. So working, you can work hard, but
Hmm.
not necessarily 12 hours a day. That's just a
Yeah.
recipe to get burned out. Or
I don't know.
yeah,
It's the US again. Like, I think that's a hard question when we're looking at through the US, like C Corp lens.
yeah,
But the way I look at it is, can that person connect emotionally with people? And can they find a place where
yeah,
they can be present? And I think those things are important.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Note to self: C Corp in the United States, stay away from.
But you see, so I live in New York City and I work in startups, and both of those things are very high stress, go, go, go,
Sure.
go, go. And I see founders and I see people in New York, which I kind of bringing them together, but like they often look for really extreme experiences
Mm,
to allow them to be present, like extreme sports or kickboxing, or they have to run ultra marathons, or they're surfers, or rock climbing, or they go to on the other hand they go to like Burning Man and
don't
just
know.
party their butts off for a week.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so if people can find what they need in that.
They're welcome to come to Poland, and we'll show them what drinking looks like. I don't think they will party again for a week after spending a few days here.
Yeah, that sounds good though. I can hang with that.
All right, I'm gonna ask you one last question. Go into our rapid fire round. If a founder is struggling to raise money, how do they know if it's market? But a lot of times it is, or it's just not a venture or backable business.
Well, you need to look at the plans, right? So there's a couple things. I mean, first of all, I don't know that answer is super helpful unless you're
Mm,
doing a postmortem on raise. Like you're like, what? Why am I not able? Like, I don't know if it's helpful preparing for a raise other than checking if you're VC backable. So a VC backable
okay.
business needs to be hitting 100 million in annual recurring revenue in year 4 or 5.
Oh wow, that's quick.
That's the bar right now, and that is probably going up. So yeah, it's really fast growth, super fast growth.
Yeah.
That's what people are looking for, and I don't know how you do that. Like
Is
that's
that hyper growth? Is that what you call hyper growth, or is this fast?
I probably fast growth at this point. I mean, there's some companies out there that we all know that we're using that have hit 100 million in months, right? So it's the bar is going up, and I think first you have to make sure that you're hitting the right numbers and that you are planning to continue that trajectory. Um, but yeah, I mean, market sector, all those things can be a reason why you can't raise. And I think the other thing you can do is you can easily use one of your AI buddies to say, is this a VC backable business right now? Because they can answer those questions.
Mm,
Or you can talk to someone like me and I can say pretty quickly, like I spoke to an amazing, well, I spoke to an amazing founder maybe a year and a half ago, and she had a really cool company that she was building, but she was shooting for 3 million in year 5. And I was like, well, this isn't VC backable. It's a good business. Like,
bootstrapped.
it's an interesting business, but like, it's not VC backable.
It's a
So
lifestyle business. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I know. And like lifestyle business, when I was out there raising money, is used so negatively.
Why?
I don't know. It felt really negative when people are like, oh, this is a night lifestyle business. You're like, you feel so dismissed when people say that. But
Isn't
a
that coming back
lifestyle
to the
business is
point
a
of yeah,
wonderful business. Yeah, like a lifestyle business, one that throws off cash and you can live off of. And it's a
yeah,
great business.
yeah, not having to answering slacks on 4 a.m. or doing calls at I don't
Yeah.
know 11 p.m. Saturday. Like,
Yeah.
gee, I don't know. I think that's something you should emulate as opposed to just being on the
Yeah.
grind. It's like, why? Um,
Absolutely. And
uh,
when I say like there are investors out there that have told me in our interviews that if they send an email to someone at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning, they expect a response within an hour. And if they don't get a response within an hour, they're not going to invest.
I think both those parties are miserable. By the way, the one
Yeah,
writing
dude,
that
that's not
email.
my investor. I'm asleep.
Like the one writing the email and the one replying to the email.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, no.
Maybe many years ago I'd be out partying, but now I'm asleep. Like I'm not answering emails at that point.
You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting because the answer to your question that in the very beginning that I asked about the wand one, I think what world could use a little bit more of is empathy.
Yeah.
Just generally. I
100%.
think that would
Yeah.
not be a bad way to go about doing is that people are people. You don't have to just be an a-hole to fit the persona. Treat people nicely.
But
It'll come back to you.
there's also some other stuff in there. Okay. So like I'm a
Sure.
New Yorker, so I'm a little bit of an a-hole anyway.
My
It's
mom
just
is a
part
New
of
Yorker, and I can tell you
it's
that
just
it comes with it. I think it comes with a
it's
zip code.
part of our culture.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like New Yorkers will never waste your time. They're going to be very direct, but that directness
Yeah.
can be seen as being a jerk, right? So like there's some it's just part of the
It's ironic
culture.
you
So
say New Yorkers and wasting time, considering it took me 2.5 hours to go from Jersey to
oh
to
yeah,
to
we'll waste time in traffic.
JFK.
That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So these two things they don't jive altogether, but I get it.
That's true. You can call me on my bullshit. But the so I think in startup land as well, you also have to think about are people being like ill-intentioned jerks, or is it by virtue of what they're dealing with? So like
What are they
VCs,
dealing with?
well, so VCs now are getting incredible amounts of outreach, right? And they get so much email, and some of their email is like not even the right fit for them.
Gee, it
So
must be tough.
but so if you're getting all these emails and someone's like, hey, I got a great idea for a chewing gum brand and we're going to hit 1 million in 10 years, like, they may respond with like, not a fit, period.
That's fine.
Thanks, Joe, like, but the founder might be like, oh God, that was terrible. Right.
Why
Like,
was
I
it
think,
terrible?
I don't know, because it feels so direct,
I would
you
consider
know?
no reply would be a shitty thing, but if somebody took the time to reply, I consider that a positive. But that's the sales
Yeah.
guy in me.
But like, even I mentioned Charlie O'Donnell a couple times in this conversation because I just spoke with him, but like I pitched him ages ago for my startup
Mm.
and it was not a fit. But I still
Sure.
remember him sending back an email saying not a fit. And I was like, oh God, like you won't even take the meeting?
I think you get to lower your expectations when you're just winging it and sending out an email to a cold email to an investor,
Yeah.
just about anyone, right? For the most part.
Yeah. Well, and
Uh,
and there's tricks around that too. Like I always tell my founders to not send one email, but send like 100 emails or 10 emails a day. So if you get one back, you're super like
yeah,
stoked and you
yeah,
forget about the 9 ones you didn't get back or
yeah,
the 9 negative ones, right? Like
yeah,
you just kind of get used to it.
yeah. Empathy, I think, is pretty critical. It goes a long way. 100%. Goddamn New Yorkers. All right, well, let's get to the rapid fire round. It's quick
Sure.
questions, quick answers. Best
Yeah.
advice you've ever received, business or personal?
I think the best advice I just heard the other day, I think it was just on the radio or something, was like, yeah, if people are driving you crazy, just roll your eyes and then give them grace. Like if you're in a public place and people are just driving you crazy, just like, try not to roll your eyes visibly, but just like you can be annoyed with them, but like just be like, hey, we don't know what that person's going through.
Bless their heart. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I also, on the flip side, the thing that I really like is like, life is 90% how we react to things in the
Yeah.
surroundings, 10% what happens to you. So it says a lot
Fun.
about you. People are pissing you off. Chill. Lower temper it down,
Oh,
dude. You know what
I
I mean?
like that.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah. You got to be cool as a cucumber. Now let
Yeah.
nothing affect you. Just roll
Well,
through life. You're going on on an expressway.
yeah, I'm not rapid firing this very well, but I'll say I
Sorry.
also think that like when you're feeling really emotional or triggered or like upset about something,
Yeah.
taking the time you need to like process your emotions before you respond is really important.
Yeah. I was listening to this book by Jefferson. I forgot. It was a really good book. It's one of the New York Times bestseller. And he said that the first word that should come out of your mouth when you're in a tense conversation, anywhere emotions are high, is your breath. Just give it a break. Like if you give it a
Yeah.
break before you respond, chances of your answer being a lot better is a lot higher. Because
Yeah.
if you emotionally respond and spout off what you're about to say, 9 out of 10 times you're going to regret it later on. So
Plus, breathing also gives your brain more oxygen, so it can
fair
work
enough.
better.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Something that New Yorkers could use a lot of, considering they don't have a lot of oxygen going on in Manhattan for the most part. On the flip side, advice you ignored or wish you had listened to.
Oh man. I wish I knew everything that I know now about VC. I would have
Really?
never looked for VC money for my company and failed. Yeah, I should have listened to those people that said it wasn't VC backable. My first, like the startup that I had for a long time. I should have raised money elsewhere. And I did, but like VC was always in my plans for eventually. And by the time I was raising VC, my sector had gone out of favor and my company was around too long. And that's why we had to shut down. And like, I should have had a plan B there.
It's a great story, though. You wouldn't
Yeah.
have this story if you didn't have to go through that
Yeah.
experience. So I always take that as a positive. You just tack it on and keep forward, right? That's
Yeah.
how winning is done. What would you tell your younger self, say 7 to 10 years ago?
Oh, these are tough questions. You did send these to me before.
Sorry.
I don't know. What would I don't know, my crypto?
That
Yeah,
is
my
such a
crypto.
meta American answer. Buy crypto. Like, dude,
That would have been the right time. I mean, 14, 15 years it would have been better, but it's still 7 years ago would have been fine. Yeah.
An ongoing challenge in your current work that keeps you up at night.
Trying to figure out the best way for founders to raise when the rules are changing all the time. So like tools are changing all the time. The way people are responding are changing faster than ever. We have to react to people getting more and more emails. And it's like trying to navigate that really dynamic experience
Yeah.
to get my founders funded.
Can I give an insight in there?
Mhm.
Something that I'll learn from somebody I highly respect. People never change.
Yeah.
Mediums might, processes
Yeah.
might, tools might,
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
might. People inherently will still get scared, will still be greedy, will still need food, will still need
Yeah.
shelter. Premise of that never really changes. So focus on
Yeah.
that.
No, I love that. And so what I really lean into in our work is like relationships are more and more important. The more automation, the more AI
100%.
like relationships and trust are really the hack here.
Yeah, without trust, you have nothing. Even in
Yep.
the VC and then funding relationship, there's nothing
Yeah.
if there's no trust, right? For the most part.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
Here's a fun one, and this is slightly selfish. Your favorite restaurant, meal, or spot in New York?
Oh, I can tell you my favorite place in the whole entire world though.
Go ahead.
How about that?
Let's do it.
My favorite restaurant in the whole entire world is named Lola's, and it's on a beach in Costa Rica called Avianas.
That sounds perfect. What kind of food did they serve?
I serve a variety of foods. It's just like all very fresh, delicious food.
Ceviche
So they
style
serve-
thing.
They have some ceviche. They have some, some nachos. They have some more Costa Rican food, but they also have just things for tourists. But it's just in front of the most beautiful beach, the most beautiful surfing beach in the whole entire world.
Do you surf?
Yeah.
Couldn't stay
So-
on the board.
Yeah, you just need another day. Lola's is such a wonderful place. It's the reason why I moved to Costa Rica for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sounds beautiful. There you go.
Yeah.
Last question. One tool that you swear by and cannot live without.
Oh, I think Claude right now.
Really? You like Claude, not GPT?
I like Claude. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. God, I think GPT is a lot faster. Claude, for me, it's just been slower for the most part. It's
I took a year and I was working on Claude and GPT and Perplexity, and I ended up just working with Claude.
By the way, in your background, I see the book Atomic Habits. You recommend it?
Yeah.
You like it?
It's worthwhile. It's good.
Yeah, because I think I read it's by Morgan Housel, right? That's Atomic Habit, or maybe not. That might be.
I think
The
it's
Art
by
of
someone
Spending-
else.
Someone
But
else. Sorry, we're getting.
but I have to pull it out to look it up. James Clear.
James
know
Clear.
that.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But
Now you know it's a real book.
Hey, is that background virtual? Is that a real background? Yes, sir.
Makes
Did you
someone
make
walk
that?
in and out of it.
Like, can you touch it? Sure. That can be touched.
Yeah, so I have a lot of business books that I'm reading all the time, and so that one I read a while ago, but it's good. I think, Founder and Friendly is an excellent book that just came out by Charlie O'Donnell. I'm plugging it so much because I like it. I'm not getting a cut.
Says you.
Yeah. But I'm really enjoying it. I like it because I also like the way it's written. It's a very New York tone.
New York tone, this enigma that you described today in New York, I gotta experience it. I gotta go there, stay there a while and try to understand what that is. But this has been fantastic. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Helena. Where can listeners find you?
They can find me at helenafogarty.com or on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Perfect.
Or on
Any
Inside
upcoming-
Startup Fundy at YouTube.
There you go. Any upcoming
Yeah,
project
so
launch?
If I can plug that really quickly, like
Please go
Inside
ahead.
Startup Funding, we started the podcast to help people understand how funding works. And so we interview a founder who has just raised, like in the last 6 months, and what they did to make that happen. So that also helps me learn new tips and tricks. But then we also talk to VCs every other week. So that's a nice hack. If you're trying to reach out to VCs, you could say, hey, I saw you on Inside Startup Funding. I really like this thing you said. Again, it's about earning their trust and be like, oh, there's a reason why I should be reading this email.
Fantastic. Helena,
Yeah.
wishing you nothing but success. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. This was so
time.
fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Cool.
Folks, if you got value out of this, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.